As entrepreneurs, I know that we all accumulate things. And when I say things, I mean software and gadgets and gizmos. Just like the Little Mermaid says, gadgets and gizmos aplenty. And something that I wanted to talk about. Number one, I got a new microphone for podcasting. And as I was setting this up, the TLDR of that is I plugged it in and it worked, which is great. But that's not the point of today's episode. So, in today's episode, I want to talk about how we tend to accumulate software as entrepreneurs. Now, if you've been here before, you'll know that I have talked about your tech stack. I've talked about, is it costing you money? Is it saving you money? Like, how do you determine that? So, today I wanted to go through a little self audit that you could do for yourself and your business and really understand how is your tech working for you. Running a business can feel like having 17 different tabs open in your brain, and somehow every single one is making noise. Welcome to the Chaos to Clarity podcast, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs cut through the endless strategies, the conflicting advice, and the pressure to do everything all at once. My name is Maggie Olson, and I've been building businesses since 2007. And I know that more information isn't usually the answer. You need to understand what actually matters and what is really going to work for you and what your business really needs next. Each week, we're going to talk honestly about marketing, about sales, systems, AI, leadership, maybe even get a little woo with some human design and the real decisions behind building a business that actually works, that's actually sustainable for you. So let's turn down the noise and let's find your next clear step in today's episode. So, hello and welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I'm your host and your business mentor and strategist. And I'm excited to talk to you today about accumulating software and accumulating tech that you initially thought was going to help you make money, but might not actually be making you money now. So, we all know the drill, right? You needed a scheduler, so you got Calendly. You then bought into the email platform because you needed to send emails, so enter Flowdesk or Kit or any of those. And then of course you needed a course platform to host your course on, so you bought into Kajabi. And then you needed Canva, and then you needed QuickBooks, and then you needed something for contracts, and then you needed the AI tools, and then someone told you that you absolutely had to have this other thing. So you bought it, and now 6 to 12 months later, you've got $300 to $700 disappearing every single month, and you don't even remember what half of it does. You might not have even logged into it for the last 6 to 12 months. Now, I want to make an important distinction here. Having technology is not the same thing as having systems. Those are, although they intertwine, they are in fact two separate things. So you can have 12 really powerful tools and still be copy and pasting information between them, forgetting to follow up with leads, manually sending reminders, searching for client info, and really just wondering why the business takes so much of your time. And this is something that in a future episode, I want to go over how to audit your overhead hours in business, because this is absolutely something that I see no one talking about. I don't see anyone talking about how long or how much overhead is included in a business. Now, I think no one really talks about it because it varies for everyone. However, I will say that for every one client hour, you probably have anywhere from 3 to 5, even up to 10 hours of overhead that you can basically just bake into your time. So if you're thinking, yes, I would love to have 10 new clients, great. Do you have 30 extra hours? If you bring on 10 clients and your overhead is 3 hours per client, do you have 30 extra hours? God forbid it's 10, because that's 100 hours. So no wonder why it feels like your business is taking so much time. Now, this is not to shame anyone or say you're doing it quote unquote wrong, because that's not what I believe. So the thing I want you to understand and get out of this episode is I want you to be able to look at what you're doing in business and start to see where you can trim away the excess, to trim away things that you don't necessarily need. So, again, today we're going to talk about tech, and we're going to talk about systems. And in a different episode, we're going to talk more about that overhead, the client to like work overhead. So, now, I want to introduce to you a thought that I have had multiple times, but over the last 6 years being in the online business space, this has become really, really super important. And this is a rule that I have for myself, and it's that every piece of technology in my business needs at least one job, preferably two, and preferably it can be connected somewhere. So I'm not having to copy and paste. So, and when I give a piece of tech a job, so to speak, I want it to fall into one of four categories. Now, these categories are things that when I come across a new piece of tech and I'm like, oh, I need that. I need that. Here's how I don't just immediately buy it or immediately opt into the free trial and then forget that I had the free trial and it charges my card. Each piece of tech has to fall into one of these four categories. Number one, it saves time, meaningful time. And I would even add to the end of this that there's not a huge learning gap. Like, I don't have to take a ton of time to learn the tech that I'm buying. Number two, it improves client and customer experience. So it's going to enhance the people that I'm serving. Number three, it helps me generate, track, or convert revenue. So I want every piece of tech that I have to help me make money, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, I know there will always be bills and things to pay, but I also need to know that I'm going to have ROI on this. And then number four, it gives information that I can actually use to make future decisions. Now, if it doesn't fall into one of those four categories, I don't get it. Or I'll wait. And I'll wait until I keep coming back to it and keep having whatever problem it is that prompted me to find it in the first place to see, is this really something that I can use? Now, um, I also want to point out that, like, I might need it someday isn't a job. So, case in point, I pay for both ChatGPT and Claude um, subscriptions. Now, not all that long ago, I went down a rabbit hole, as one does. But I went through all of my subscriptions to make sure that I was not paying for things or opting into things that I didn't actually need. Now, I do use Claude and ChatGPT separately, and I do need both of those right now for some of the projects that I'm working on. So it was a justified business expense. Now, that might change in 6 months. I don't know. But for right now, they're both justified. They are both doing a job. They are both helping me, saving me time, and they are both improving my client experience, but also helping me track some data. And that was the most important, because it was Claude that I was like, do I really actually need this? Now, so I just want to say, right? I might need it someday is not a job. Okay. So I would take the 4 jobs that I gave you. If there's any others that you really want to put in there, go ahead and add them. But I would say those 4 are pretty common, right? It's going to save you time. It's going to enhance an experience. It's going to help you generate, track, or convert. And then it's going to give you information that's going to better assist your decision making in the future. Also, quote unquote, everyone uses it is also not a reason to use the software. If you genuinely need it, yes. If you don't, you don't. And it's okay if you don't, right? Like I know a lot of people use CapCut to edit their videos. I don't. I don't like to. I don't like how it works. I've tried it and I paid for a month of the pro and I didn't like how it worked. So, yes, I tried it and that's not to say you shouldn't try tech, okay? Um so I want to take you through the audit that I take my clients through, but that I also take myself through. And I think it's important for you to understand that a lot of the stuff I talk about here on the podcast, also the stuff that I talk about, on social media, these are all things that I have used well before I've like gotten more involved, like Satva, for instance. I used Satva for years before I ever came on as the director of operations. So I think it's important to love the thing that you're working on or working with and then share about it. So okay, so let's go through this audit because I know I don't mind the word audit, and this is going to be a bit of a tangent, so stay with me. But I will say I don't mind the word audit. Now I know it scares some people because they're like, audit, oh no, don't look at me. But here's the thing in business, and remember, I've been in business for almost 20 years. At this point, I want to make sure that all the things I'm doing in business are going to cost the least amount of money so that I have the biggest amount of profit or like bang for my buck. That is what I want. So I don't want 27 different subscription fees. In fact, the other day I went through all, like I said, I went through all of my subscriptions. I went through this exact audit that I'm going to take you on because I wanted to know, where is my money going right now? Why am I seeing random charges for random things at random times? I want to understand this. And I think as a business owner, it's very important to understand that so that you're not like, oh my God, there's another $30 every month that's going away. Okay, so number one, the first step in the audit, you're probably going to want a piece of paper. You might even want a cutie little spreadsheet, right? So I track all of my stuff inside of a spreadsheet. Um, for, end of year tax purposes. This is what I go through when I do this. Okay. So I look at, what am I actually paying for? I look at that spreadsheet and I go down the list of softwares and things that I pay for. And I go through and I look at, do I actually need this? What am I paying for? Is this still the current price? Right now, you could do this a couple of ways. You could open up your bank or your credit card statement, and you could look through that. You could also, again, I keep everything inside of a spreadsheet so that I don't have to constantly be logging in and out of my bank account. The spreadsheet is easy. I don't have to worry about, like security, whatever. I can just go there. So, what you're going to do is you're going to go through things like website hosting, domain renewals, CRM, email marketing, scheduling. Now I'm reading a list here because I went through my stuff and this is like all the this is a lot of the things that I had listed there and there were quite a few things that I could take off. So, again, website hosting, domain renewals, CRMs, email marketing, schedulers, payment processing subscriptions, course platforms, courses, community software, things like Canva, AI subscriptions, accounting or bookkeeping software, project management, social scheduling, cloud storage, Zoom, transcription services. That one will get you. Automation tools. Some people use a lot of stock photography, plugins, apps, all of that stuff. I want you to go and I want you to look through your bank statement and I want you to look through, okay, what is actually a business cost here? What is this? What am I paying for it? And I think understanding the number before you're like, oh my God, I'm paying for so much stuff, right? Understanding and seeing it and going, okay, here's Canva, here's Zoom, here's Capwing, here's whatever, right? And the list. Okay, do I actually need all of these things, or can one of these do something that the other does? And don't forget about annual subscriptions. Those live all over the place. And case in point, I just had to pay for Zoom and I pay that annually. And I did not realize that it was coming due. So when it came due, I was like, oh my God, Zoom, hello, hi, why are you almost $200? So I went into my Zoom subscription and I realized there were a couple things that I had added on to my Zoom account that I don't need anymore. So I took those off and I lowered the bill, which felt really cool to like save some money. Tell me you're from the Midwest without telling me you're from the Midwest. So, as you're doing this, as you're going through this, I want you to either write down on a piece of paper or again, get a little cutie spreadsheet and you're going to create if you're using a spreadsheet, you're going to create some headers and you're going to say tool at the top. So the first line is going to be tool, purpose, cost. Is it doing its job? Okay, that those are the headers of the columns that you want. And then you could also, if you're wanting to understand whether you like want to keep it, you could also add a fifth column that says keep, cancel, consolidate, or fix. And those are kind of all in one. I would say you could actually split that into two. You could have a keep or cancel, and then you could have a consolidate or fix column. So you could have anywhere from 4 to 6 columns here. Again, so you're going to have tool, purpose, cost. Is it doing its job? Which is kind of a yes or no question. And then the keep, cancel column, and then the next column would be consolidate slash fix. Because now you're looking at this with decision making lenses on. And this is where I want you to step into your big girl pants and make the decision. Now, look, I know we are decision fatigued, right? Like I am out here with you decision fatigued. Like yes, I get it. Because ask me what I'm going to make for supper and I might punch you in the face. I mean, I won't, but like I might get a little angry because I don't know and I don't really want to make that decision. But here's the thing. When you decide that you don't want to make the decision, it makes the decision harder. So if you stay in that decision fatigue, in that soup of like, oh, I'm so angry, I have to make all these choices, well, then you're just going to keep being angry, right? So let's shift that. Let's shift that into saying, okay, I'm going to look at these very real things in my business and I'm going to decide, do I want to keep Riverside? Do I want to keep Zoom? Do I want to keep Captivate, where I host my podcast? Like, what are the jobs of the softwares that I have? Are they doing their jobs? What are they doing? How can I combine things? And it gives your brain like actual physical things to do. Now, so that's step one. Step one, I want you to write it all down. What are you actually paying for? What is it actually costing? And like how much are you paying monthly and or yearly, right? Now, if you are like me, like I pay for Canva yearly, I pay for Captivate, which is where I host my podcast yearly. I pay for Zoom yearly. I pay for Riverside, which is where I record my podcast. I pay for those things yearly. So sometimes those things, those subscriptions sneak up on me. And before I know it, it's like 3 months in a row, and I'm paying like $400 or $500 for all these things. Now, this is something that, again, in a different episode, I'm going to go into a little bit of the accounting, like the behind the scenes of how I track and manage money in my business, because I think this is also a little wishy washy for some people. So doing this audit is going to help you understand what's the cost, what is the overhead cost, not just what is the time cost, but the overhead. Like how much do I need to make in my business just to run the business? And I'm not saying that you need to run your business on like hopes and prayers, right? And no software. That's not what I'm saying. Like, girl, go get the software, make it easier on yourself. But also, I want you to understand that some tech tools have multiple things that they can do. Now, case in point, Riverside, for example. I could host my whole podcast inside of Riverside. So I don't necessarily need Captivate. However, you can only host one podcast inside of Riverside, which is cool, but I have multiple podcasts. So I don't necessarily want multiple Riverside accounts. I then need Captivate because I need to be able to host multiple podcasts, right? Um, so that is also something to think about. And, however you justify your expenses is fine. Like I'm not here to tell you you can't do something because I don't know, maybe it does make it easier for you. So you have to decide that for yourself. Anyway, now step 2 in this, after you've written all this down, I want you to go through and answer what job does every tool perform. I just went through a couple of the jobs, right? Like case in point, Riverside and Captivate, or maybe you use Descript, maybe you use Zoom and Descript and Lisbon or Buzzsprout, or what are some other ones? Like maybe you have multiple, and again, it's okay. Like it's not a big deal if you have multiple, but if there's something that you can bring in that does the job of all three of those or four or whatever it is, that is something to look at. So, that's kind of how to look at it if you're thinking like, "Oh, well, I don't know, like duplication of efforts." Now, I see this if we're not talking about podcasting. I see this a lot with scheduling. And I see this a lot with like Calendly has schedule, right? Calendly is obviously a calendar scheduler, but a lot of CRMs also handle scheduling. A lot of websites now handle scheduling. And so there's a lot of like all in one, right? And which is why that's why I love Satva, because I don't need a Calendly. I don't need Kajabi. I don't need ConvertKit, right? Everything, I don't need Flowdesk. Like everything is all in one. I don't need Squarespace or Wix or WordPress. It's all inside of Satva. So I don't have to pay for Calendly. I don't have to pay for Squarespace. I don't have to pay for Flowdesk or ConvertKit. I don't have to pay for Kajabi, right? So there's things, money essentially, that I save by having an all in one system. Now, the trade off on that can be learning that new system. Like I know Kajabi has a lot of the same things that Satva does. Kajabi is a lot more expensive though. So that is something to think about. Now, if you're paying for something like Zapier or Make.com to connect two pieces of software that perhaps don't need to be separate anymore, like you don't have to pay for Zapier when it's all in one. And that, again, that if you're interested in a Satva demo, you slide right into my DMs because I will hook you up with that. Because I think understanding what is out there when it comes to having an all in one system is super important. Now, by all means, if you are making it work with multiple different things, that's fine. But again, I'm going to talk about in a future episode how to save time, that overhead time that nobody talks about. Like the overhead time that you'll save having an all in one system, whether it's Satva or not, is you'll save hours, right? When I say for every one client hour, you'll have usually 3 to 10 hours of overhead. You're having 10 hours of overhead because you have 10 different systems that aren't connected and you're copy and pasting between them. When you bring things into all in one or slim down your tech stack, your systems, things change and things get easier. And I think I want you to understand that as well. But I also want you to understand consolidation isn't always better. It's just as important to spend money on a specialized tool because it does something exceptionally well. Case in point, having Riverside to record a podcast and having Captivate to host the podcast. Now, if I was just doing one podcast, it would probably be fine to do things in here. However, I want to say, like, just like with Spotify, when I first started doing my podcast, I paid for Zoom and I would upload everything to Spotify because it was free. Now, I don't know if Spotify for podcasters is still free, is still a thing, but the analytics in there weren't as good as I wanted them to be. So that was a reason why I switched and brought everything over into Captivate because I got more analytics. I was able to see more stuff and understand more of what my podcast was or was not doing, right? Same thing for Riverside. When I said yes to Riverside, it was more than just being in Zoom. Inside of Riverside, there's so many more things that can happen for my podcast. Like it helps me edit, it gives me magic clips, it gives me transcriptions, it gives me a lot of the things that in Zoom I was doing manually. So those are kind of exceptions, right? Because I still pay for Zoom. However, I did downgrade it, right? I had to upgrade it when I was doing a lot of podcasting over there. Now I've downgraded it, but now I have this Riverside cost. So, looking at those costs and understanding your justification is where you want to start to understand are my dollars working for me or against me? And at the end of the day, the question isn't can I get this down to one tool? It's more along the lines of can I justify every tool that I'm paying for? That's a much smarter standard to hold than, like how can I downsize or how can I reduce what I'm doing? Now, step 3 is going to be follow the human, not the software. So, instead of looking for apps individually, you want to follow a person through the business. So, if someone finds you, then what happens? They fill out a form. Now, this is where we're going to start to get into your client journey. And I want you to remember this because I think it's super, super important. It's super important to understand what happens when someone finds you. How does someone go from cold to sold in your corner of the internet? And you could even take that a step further of how does someone go from cold to sold to like offboarded, right? Or like in that recurring customer mode, right? Like what happens when someone goes through your business? I also don't see a lot of people talking about this. And this is something that I ask business owners almost every single day. What is your client journey? What happens when someone finds you for the very first time? What happens between then and when they pay? What happens after they pay? What happens when they're ready to be rolled off? Right? So there's those kind of distinctive parts, right? So if when someone finds you, they find your freebie, they want to download your freebie. Then what happens? They tend to fill out a form. And then what? Where does that information go? What happens? Are there notifications? Do they receive anything? Do you receive anything? Do you need to respond? Like what is that process? And when you look at it like that, you start to see, oh, there's some steps that are missing and here's where some holes are in my process. And although again, like I said, an audit can feel so scary, but you know what, at the end of the day, understanding the process and understanding how people can come into your world, how they can navigate inside your world, and then how they can help bring other people, how they can exit, that's very important. So I just want to say, like, here, I've talked with people, business owners, who they've shared with me their client journey. And I mean, Jesus take the wheel, because there were a few people who I've worked with who literally had 37 steps of like, well, they could come in any of these 12 places. They might receive this thing, they might receive that thing. It depends on what they're doing. And here are the 27 steps they could take. Oh, I'm confused just thinking about that again. Um, and a confused buyer is not going to buy. So if you are like, huh, I've got 27 freebies and nobody's booked, nobody's grabbed any, that might be the problem. Like, that's a good place to start. That's a good place to understand what happens next. I also would say, if you have never jumped into your client journey, do that. Like, walk through your client journey so you know what happens when I do this thing. Get curious. This is where I know in past episodes I've talked about curiosity and like keeping that childlike play, that childlike wonder of what happens when I do this. And like literally do it yourself or have your spouse do it. What happens when you do this? Right? Can you do this for me? I want to understand what happens. I want to see what happens. And then, do you understand what is happening as you're walking through there? Right? So you're looking for confirmation, reminders, instructions. Are you receiving the emails? Where are the emails going? Right? Did they attend a sales call, but they didn't buy? Right? What is working? What is not? And go through that for every single step. Right? So it might be like a 30 or 40 step process here. Someone's not going to go from cold to sold without stuff in the middle, right? So someone finds you. Maybe they follow you on Instagram or Facebook or wherever. And maybe you send a DM and say, "Hey, Sally, thanks for connecting. I'm so glad you're here." They like a post, and then they say yes to a post that has, you know, um, some sort of freebie attached to it. They exchange their email for the freebie. What happens? Do they get the freebie? Is it emailed? Are you sending a Google Doc? Like, what's happening? How is that? Like, are you nurturing them? Did they open it? Did they receive it? Did it go to their spam? Did it go to their junk? Did it land in promotions? Did it land in their regular email? Like, what happens? And then after they have that, like, again, are you nurturing that person? Are you sending emails saying, "Hey, Sally, I hope you found this helpful"? Are you checking in online? Are you checking in on the DMs? "Hey, Sally, I know you downloaded that thing. I saw it went to your email. Did you get it? Did you open it? Did you like it? Was it helpful? What questions can I answer? Would it be helpful to hop on a call and discuss your situation?" Right? So understanding that. And then once you do bring them onto a call, did they buy? Right? And then what happens after they buy? Like the payments, the contracts, the onboarding, like what then happens? And what happens after they buy? Testimonial, review, referral, continued to nurture, another offer. This is where people kind of fall off the bandwagon, right? And your biggest tech problem might not be that you're missing software. You probably, honest to God, have everything you already need. The problem might actually be that nothing happens between A and B unless you remember to make it happen. So when people are talking about all of these Claude skills and all of these things that you can automate, if you've not set up the automations, or if you don't know what the steps are to set up the automations for, that's where the bottleneck is right there. That is the chaos to clarity, is understanding, okay, when I send an email, it's going into spam. Okay, cool. Let's look. Let's understand why it's going to spam. Are you using a Gmail account to send all of these emails, or are you using a custom domain to send all these emails? Now, step 4, the last step here, is the removal test. Now, this is where people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't stop." But here's the thing. If you look at that list of all of the subscriptions that you have and ask yourself, if I cancel this today, what would happen. And this is where, like earlier in the episode, where I was talking about having Claude and ChatGPT, right? Subscriptions to both. I found myself thinking, if I canceled one, what would happen? Like, what is connected where, and what are they both doing for me? And how are both of those supporting me? Right. And if nothing happens, if you're canceling one, right? Like you could take like Canva versus Capwing here in this choice, right? Like where Capwing I use for a very specific thing that I can probably do inside of Canva. I just haven't figured out how. So essentially, I have 10 more months to figure out how to do what I was doing in Capwing inside of Canva, or I can keep them both, right? So if you have to, like manually perform 6 tasks every week, then maybe it's doing its job, right? Like with the Capwing and Canva situation. Um, like I use Capwing for like three very specific things that Canva can kind of do. Like what does it take for me or a VA to get Canva to do that thing? If it's crazy and like needs more than 6 steps, it's probably going to earn its keep, right? Capwing could probably stay then. So I want you to think about how you use that stuff and how often you use that stuff. Now, to go back to the Canva versus Capwing, I don't use Capwing a ton. So that's where that piece of software, I'm keeping track of how often I open that software because I want to understand if I'm only using it a couple times, like if I'm using it less than once per month, then it's probably more important for me to learn how to do it in Canva and understand what those steps are so I can get better at them, so I can create an SOP, and so that I can give that to a VA potentially down the road. So I want you to understand that, like, this is all stuff that a lot of times we don't, as business owners, do this. And this is why it's so important to have at least one day per month where you're working like on your business, not in. Working in your business is like creating the content, having the conversations, like bringing in clients, that kind of stuff. Working on your business is stuff like this audit, right? Where you're going through and you're looking at, okay, here's my monthly accounting. Here's where the money's going. This is what's happening. Here's how this all is kind of going. And being able to save yourself some money at the end of the day is great, but also saving yourself some time and sanity is also very, very important. Now, something that a lot of people don't talk about is that a messy tech stack will create an invisible mental load. So, remember when I was talking about all the decision fatigue? This is what I'm talking about. If you're constantly in your brain thinking about, oh, I have to do these 27 things, and I have to do this thing, and this thing is here, and that thing is there, and I need to message Sally because she sent me a DM, and blah, blah, blah. It's not just a subscription cost now. It's remembering which platform has which information, and then what is the workaround and what is the automation that might sometimes break, but you're not really sure. And then remembering to manually move this person here so that this happens, and that person there so that happens. And then remembering to invoice people, and remembering to do the trigger for onboarding, and remember to do X, Y, and Z. And pretty soon you're the integration. You're the one. Everything, you are the center of that. And while yes, you are the center of your business, I want to also talk about how when you call your business your baby, that's actually not great, right? Because babies have a lot of needs. So that integration point where everything is pointing back to you, if you're continually at the center of your business like that, You're never going to be able to take time off. You're never going to be able to take a vacation. And every time you step away from your computer, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is going to fall apart. It's going to fall apart because I'm not there. And that's not the point of a business. You want your business to be able to run and flourish without you having to be at its every beck and call, which basically makes you, if you are the center of all this, you're the most expensive integration inside of your business. And I don't want this to be like, oh, Maggie said I have to rebuild my entire business this weekend. That's not it. I want you to look at all the things that you have, right? All the tech that you have. Look at one thing look at all of them and then ask yourself, is there one thing that I can cancel? Is there something that can consolidate? Is there one repetitive task that I can automate? Or can I finally configure something that I've already been paying for so that it does its job? That is something that, you can definitely look at, and you can really maximize what you're doing, how you're doing it. And it's a pretty easy fix if you're wanting to save money. Now, all of this stuff that I just talked about today, this is stuff that I do inside of these 2-hour strategy calls that I offer. And, if you're thinking like, I don't even know what I have, what it's doing, how it's doing it, I'm lost. It would be a good idea to book a 2-hour strategy call with me. If you're not sure if that is for you, you can go ahead and book a 30-minute offer audit. If you book a 30-minute offer audit, that's where we're going to go through what's working, what's not, what are your offers, right? We're going to look at all that, and I'm going to be able to tell you, yes, I think you need a strategy call, or no, I think maybe you need a VIP day. Maybe you need more of my time. Anyway, all that to say, I hope this was super helpful. And if you have any questions, please feel free to slide right into my DMs and let me know what questions you have, specifically around like your tech stack and what tools work best together and what things are compatible and all of that stuff. Or if you're thinking of switching from, your tech chaos to an all-in-one CRM like Satva, absolutely let me know, because I would love to share with you more about what that platform looks like. Also help you understand what platform might be best for you, because maybe it's not Satva. I don't know. At the end of the day, I want to see you win, and that is really what Chaos to Clarity is all about. So, if you found this episode helpful, please make sure to subscribe, rate, review, all the things. Share it with a friend, because the more you share, the more you rate, the more you like all of this stuff that I put out, the easier it is, number one, for me to keep showing up. But number two, it's going to reach more people. It's going to help us all in the end. So I hope that this has helped you. I'm all out of things to say at the end of the episode. So I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode.